Right, hey everyone, this is our third video that we're doing getting ready for the Tour Divide, and I thought I would take this opportunity to talk a little bit about some of my gear choices. There's a lot of research that just goes into the stuff that I'm packing, and obviously I have limited space on my bike and there's limited resources along the route, so there's a lot of thought that goes into everything that I carry. So we'll start off with what's on my head. So I've got a Rudy Project helmet. They've been one of my sponsors for a while. And mounted to the top of the helmet is not a traditional bike light. It's actually a really high quality flashlight. I chose this one. A lot of Tour Divide riders have used it because it uses AA batteries, and just because it's a little higher power than some of the bike lights that are on the market, and it's a pretty decent price. Next, I've got some Rudy Project sunglasses, and the lenses that I've gone with are more interesting. They're photochromic, meaning that in different light conditions they'll turn darker or lighter, so I can use them at night and I can use them midday. So as you can see, they're a little darker now, but at night they would be totally transparent. So this kind of lens will, I will only have to carry one. I won't have to carry a clear lens also. So that's why I chose photochromic. Okay, so for bike and bag choice, Giant Bikes is one of my sponsors, and I've gone with the Giant XTC 29R1. It's a hardtail bike with a little bit of suspension on the front for those fire roads, provide a bit of cushion as I'm going along, but a bit of stability on the back to help with increased speed. For bags, I've gone with custom bags on my frame, a seat pack, one for the handlebars. I've gone that route instead of traditional panniers, quite simply because the racks that hold those bags, so you think of traditional road touring cyclists, on a bumpier surface those racks tend to crack, so it's better to go with something that's mounted directly to the frame, or having the bags directly mounted to the frame. Okay, another note about the bike is that it has 29-inch wheels. So traditionally, things are definitely changing, but traditionally the bikes have 26-inch wheels, and it's not a huge deal, but in one pedal stroke you think you can go an extra couple of inches. So on a long tour, 29-inch wheels is better for covering more ground with each pedal stroke. These are not the stock wheels that come with the bike. They're Stan's tubeless wheels. So tubeless means that I don't have to have a tube inside the tire. And the reason I didn't go that route is I've got a fluid inside the tire that if I get a puncture, it helps seal the tire as I'm rolling, and I don't necessarily have to stop on the trail to fix or patch the tube or put a new tube in. So it just is a little quicker in that regard. So while I'm rolling, a power source is always a consideration. I've got gadgets, GPS, spot tracker, speedometer, iPhone, iPod. These things require batteries or charging. So for the iPhone and iPod, which is crucial for music, obviously I don't want to stop to charge the gadgets up because that requires time when I could actually be riding. So I started working with a new company called Solio, and they make portable solar chargers. So what I'm going to do is attach this, depending on the sun direction during the day, to my helmet or the bike, and charge this solar charger up, and then I can actually charge my devices on the go. The remaining devices that I have, actually including the lights too, I forgot about that, many of them are charged off lithium batteries. And one of the interesting things that I learned during this process is that lithium batteries are actually, even though they're a little more expensive, they're lighter, they can last longer. But one of the big considerations, especially with the spot tracker, is that they hold up better under cooler conditions. So things you would never think about if you had never done this before. Okay, so I'll talk about what I call the cockpit. right now. So where I spend most of my time during the day. On the front you'll see a GPS device. That's for navigation. Got a speedometer. It's kind of a backup that I use when I'm reading map cues to know how many more miles to the next turn. The GPS kind of validates those directions. I can see a track as I'm moving along and see where I am on that track. I've got a cue sheet that I'll be changing out throughout the day, and those are directions that I've taken and transposed right off the maps that the Adventure Cycling Association gives out for the Great Divide. Advantage of the cue sheet over looking at maps all the time is, instead of having to pull out a map every time I want to know if I'm supposed to make a turn or whatever, I've got these cues saying specifically you know, what those directions are. I don't necessarily need the visual cue. I've got that on my GPS. So having the cues out front saves me from opening a map, you know, basically every 5 minutes. Also on the front, I've got aero bars. Now you don't usually see these on mountain bikes. Why they're good for this sort of event is not necessarily because they make you aerodynamic, but because it puts a lot of your upper body weight, takes it off your seat. You know, you think of, if you've ever heard of saddle sores, you want to try to cut down on the friction or the weight that you're putting into the saddle. And I can do that by leaning over and putting my weight more into the handlebars. It also takes pressure off my hands to cut down on the numbness that I might get. Something that I've done differently than in the past is I've also added aero bar risers. This is going in line with that thought that this is not so much an aerodynamic feature as it is just a place to rest my weight. So I'm still getting down, I'm putting my weight there, but I'm not so much in a tuck position where my neck's going to be sore from riding hours upon hours in that position. I've also got a watch here. That's more for at night to have as a spare alarm. I'll have a couple of alarms to make sure I don't sleep through the night, because I'm only going to be riding, sleeping rather, you know, a couple of hours each night. I've also added grips to the front end. These don't come stock on the bike. They're a wider platform for my hands to help spread out the weight distribution, once again to cut down on numbness. And with these grips in particular, they also give me an alternate hand position. Such a small difference, but it definitely is a welcomed addition to the bike. You'll see that I've got 3 water bottles mounted. These are additional mounts to the bike that aren't normally there. I've also got a spare water bottle up front. Some riders go with Camelback, so a water bladder system. Personally, I haven't had a lot of experience with it, but with those systems I don't like it necessarily. Usually you can only use water in water bladders because you're always worried about the tubes getting moldy. So I prefer water bottles because they're easy to wash out, and I find them a little more accessible. I'm not having to suck something out of a straw. I can just squirt it into my mouth, and for racing purposes I find that a little more practical. As you can see, there's not a lot. I'm definitely going the minimalist route with the theory that going light and I'm racing. In the bags, in my seat pack, this is where most of my clothes are. I also have my Spot GPS tracker. So if you're following online, this is the device that's sending a signal up into the air. On my frame pack, it's divided into 2 sides. On the one side, I have my toiletries, so seat saver, toothbrush, you know, any medication, inflammatory pills, Duralights, my hammer bars. On the other side is where a lot of my tools are, and spare parts. So spare tube, spare brake pads, just kind of things you can change on the go. You can't take everything with you, but those are the things that are generally going to wear out. In the packs on the front, this long one is my sleeping kit. So I've got a bivy sack, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, and also some warmer sleeping clothes. I'm only going to be getting, I think I mentioned before, a couple hours of sleep every night. So you want to make those as comfortable as you can to get quality sleep, because that's a big part of recovering for this kind of trip. And then last of all, just a general use bag on the front where I'll carry day-to-day stuff. So we're thinking like credit cards, money, passport, things that I want to just grab on the fly. So that's the bags. Alright, so the things that I've brought on my bike play into my strategy. I'm going out to do well, I'll say that. This is my first time racing the Tour Divide, so I by no means expect for this to be a perfect situation. The equipment that I've chosen and the strategy that I have are a combination of taking on the Race Across America, my spinning world record attempt a couple years ago, and all the other tours that I've done. I'm pretty confident with what I have, but I also know that once you get out there, it's a pretty simple task. It's just riding, eating, and sleeping, and I'm pretty sure I can figure out as I go. So I'm not going to lose any sleep over what things weigh or if there's better options. I'm going to have confidence in the gear I have, and know with just under 2 weeks to go that I've done everything that I can do. So I'm ready to go.